India's G20 ends November 30, and Brazil will take forward the presidency from there. To discuss more about it, we have with us His Excellency Kenneth da Nobrega, who is the ambassador of Brazil to India. Thank you for joining us on Times Now, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
The way we have seen last 1 year, India's G20 presidency ends this November. How, as an ambassador and the next host of G20, you assess the whole G20 presidency by India as the chair?
Well, I would start by saying that India set a very high bar in terms of organization of more than 100 or 150 meetings in more than 50 cities, and also set a high bar in the sense of being able to promote open discussions, consensus building, and I think attracting the world at large to the big challenges faced by humanity, which have been discussed within the G20.
His Excellency, over 200 events that happened in last 1 year in 50 plus cities, as you mentioned. There were issues that were discussed, there were issues that were taken forward. Which is one event that you feel among these 200 odd events that stands out under India's chair?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because there are so many outstanding meetings, but I think that the one that stands out is the summit meeting, because I think that India did something historic. Indian delegation, Indian diplomats were able to hammer out a very complex consensus in terms of having all the G20 members agreeing on a draft, on a final statement against a very complex geopolitical background. I think this stands out as something really historic.
Definitely, the New Delhi Declaration is historic, given a complete new text that came in. And now, it brings to the last question about India, and I'll start asking about Brazil G20 now. India's Sherpa, Amitabh Kant, said that India's G20 was decisive, inclusive, and action-oriented. Now you are taking it your home. What your aim would be when you chair G20 next year?
Well, I think that the Brazilian presidency will be, to a considerable extent, a continuity in terms of priorities of the Indian presidency. Meaning to embed the Global South agenda in the G20 once and for all. And among these issues, certainly bringing back or reinforcing the concept of sustainable development as the key concept under which climate change negotiations should be carried out. And I think also fighting hunger, poverty, and inequality. Also in the development realm, I think trying to articulate new instruments of developing financing by the development institutions, by the multilateral institutions, sorry. And of course, and also promoting the reform of the global governance institutions. And of course, we should not forget that India brought the African Union to the G20. I think this is something historic, which of course Brazil will live up to this tradition by not only inviting, because the African Union is already now a member of G20, but inviting other African countries to its summit.
Ambassador, you spoke about historic moments. What's also historic is India and Brazil. It's just not two countries, it's two civilizations coming together. So if I may ask, what has the land of Amazon learned from land of Ganga when it comes to chairing the G20 summit?
I think first the administrative dimension. You know that a Brazilian delegation, technical delegation, came to the G20 summit in order to learn with the Indian experience of organizing such a big, important summit. But in substantive terms, I think many things stand out. But one is the capacity of the Indian government to connect the Indian society with the G20 by organizing meetings in more than 50 cities, by connecting the great challenges of the world to the challenges of the country, to give this idea that the world is interconnected. I think this is a very interesting lesson. I think we have learned from your presidency.
So my last question, once Brazil takes the chair, what should the developing world, global south developing world, expect from Brazil as chair of G20, given that now the focus is a lot on the developing world as well as underdeveloped world?
Yes, first let's not forget that Brazil will be the third developing country in a row to assume the presidency of the G20. So we will build on the achievements of the preceding presidencies. And as I mentioned, we will work to help reinforce, embed the South, the global South themes on the G20 agenda, and of course, fighting hunger, inequality, poverty will be one of our priorities. This is sure. And also, let's not forget. Also, we will set as a priority discussions to promote gender equality.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to be guest in Brazil next year once you start the presidency. This was His Excellency Kenneth Nobrega, the Ambassador of Brazil to India, talking exclusively to Times Now. With camera person Vimal, Risham Arvind Pratap for Times Now.